Test, 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 test. Check.
اتكلم انا شاوني انا ما اشوف. Hello everyone, good morning.
Test, test, test.
Hola, hola.
So, for this, you want to keep it short and sweet. How much time do you have? What's the,
I have to be somewhere at 12.
okay. So we'll keep an eye on the time. We'll
What do you want to cover?
So, I,
Let's promote the discovery for the folks here.
yeah, I'll talk about that. For sure. For you, I want to, I mean, we obviously put this in the casual conversation sort of thing. But it would be good to, when we talk about Jansen X, talk about sort of wave processing, if that's okay with you.
Yep, that's fine.
And then just kind of get into your mind a bit of what you think about most in terms of farming and processing.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect.
We can talk about the auctions.
If we're good with that, we can just go with just the processing. I mean, if anything, to sort of explore folks checking out the discovery copies is an opportunity for me to check out copies. Otherwise.
And this will be recorded. Okay. So we'll stream this live. We'll also use the recording to
Okay.
so it's been the same thing. Unfortunately, we are still out here, but the crowd's sort of started.
That doesn't matter. It's all good. It's mostly for the ones there. This place is so dead over here. It's the third day, so this is super fun. I just, like I said, like when we're tired of being there, so I hope you guys enjoy it. When I was traveling, this whole thing was like this thing. Okay. I didn't realize it was that. For me, this is really like I went into this stuff. And it's like something I really
Thank you so much. I think if we could just give our stars a huge round of applause. It's really been so informative and such an honor and privilege
short and sweet.
to host you all.
Sorry about this. They were supposed to drop me off.
Thank you for what you're doing.
All the way over there, sorry to walk.
Countries and around the world. Thank you for being on this stage. For being all stars, inspiring other people, and not just today, but
Where they should allow us as Ubers to
No, no,
they don't do that.
no.
one more time, a big round of applause for our all stars.
Yeah, that's yeah. We had a similar issue. It was awful.
Yeah.
We'll do this live, right? Yeah, all good. You don't need more water, bathroom. You okay?
I'm okay for the. Actually, I'll go to the bathroom.
Yeah. It's really.
Yep, it's right around the
Yeah, it's right around the corner.
One more time, a big round of applause.
Hello, Dubai.
Hello, Dubai. Okay. We good? Live? Hi, everybody. I am David Paparelli, co-founder of M-Cultivo, and welcome back to the auction stage. We are excited to have you guys here with us, both virtually and some in person, crowd around these booths here. So thank you for being with us during this World of Coffee Dubai show. It's been amazing. The World of Coffee Dubai has been so hospitable to us. The DMCC has been so amazing in sponsoring the world-class auction yesterday, and we also have a producer discovery auction on right now. So cups of coffee are on the table being cupped at our booth, the DMCC and M-Cultivo booth, which you will find near the Roaster Village. So please come over, say hi to us, and try some of these producer discovery lots. You will be able to bid on those throughout today, and then we will close out and announce winners from the stage this afternoon. So really excited about that. I have a very special guest with me today, Kai Jansen. He is a legend in the industry. Oh, he's shaking his head. He doesn't believe me on this. But Jansen Coffee Farms. Am I getting that right? Coffee Farm?
Just say Jansen Coffee. It's a lot easier.
Okay, Jansen Coffee is a Panamanian producer, renowned obviously in Panama for geisha, but among other things, processing methods and innovation. I did say this yesterday on stage, and I do believe it. People talk about innovation in a very cliche way. I think Kai, at times, is years ahead of his time in the way he thinks about coffee and the way he approaches his own lots. So his lot was on auction yesterday. You guys missed out on buying those two lots from Jansen, but we're welcome to have a conversation with him now. So thank you so much for joining me, Kai.
Thank you for having me, David. Thank you for having me on Cultivo and World of Coffee Dubai and DMCC. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Thank you. Well, we have a tradition on these types of things, Kai, and if you've seen some of our other episodes of the recordings, but the first question I often ask is, what's the best cup of coffee that you've had recently?
I had the opportunity to do an omakase at Benchmark on the 17th, and I brewed some of the Jansen X Waved that was actually the auction lot, and it was spectacular. Rainbows, gardens of flavor.
Yeah, I want to get into that auction lot a little bit, but before we do, it would be great to just ask the question of, I'm always curious on when you're thinking through this innovation, your processing methods, what do you find yourself thinking about most? What takes about most of your mind share when you're considering coffee? Is it processing? Is it farming? Is it brewing? Is it roasting? What do you find yourself obsessing over?
It's honestly all of the above. I mean, when we're talking about coffee, you're talking about something that's so complex. I mean, the way I like to say it is that if coffee was easy, we'd call it wine. I mean, I as a coffee producer would be able to just hand you a bottle of wine, and I would certainly make sure that you had the right glass, that it was the right temperature, but that's about it. When you're talking about coffee, you really have to look at all the ingredients, which would be, sort of water, how you grind it, how you brew it, how you pour it. All of these things matter. So from there all the way to what sort of soil amendments are going on, what the terroir is, what the weather is, to when you are picking it, when it arrives at the processing mill, what's the most important thing to do with that coffee and how to handle it. I have been in coffee for quite a period of time. So back in the early 90s, the whole idea was that coffee couldn't really be improved. I mean, washed coffee was queen, so to speak. There were certain individuals that would even sort of completely give a zero to any natural they found on the table. They completely rejected them. So for me, the first thing is to have an open mind as to what coffee greatness can be. And even though I said that, if coffee was easy, we'd call it wine, coffee is so complex, and every sort of great coffee producer, from my perspective, wants to become a winemaker. In other words, we want to create processes from harvesting to soil, tree management, to treatment of workers in a way that we actually are intentionally trying to create great energy through our coffee. And in processing, figuring out ways that we can actually counteract maybe when we have bad weather. I mean, the weather is changing, things are happening differently, so we really have to look at how to change what we do and how we do it. So So sort of Jansen X, which I think you might be asking, where did that come from? That actually started here in Dubai in 2018 when I met Ben Morrow, and we were looking at what are the different things that affect coffee in different ways. And the first one we were testing out was drying. I think that one of the hallmarks of Jansen coffee, when people ask me what makes Jansen different, there's our family, our passion for coffee, but certainly is our attention to drying. I mean, we have so many different drying methods that we probably have like at least 36 different ways that we can dry coffee when you're looking at the different ways that, we can do sun dry, we can do a static, we can do mechanical, we can, all the way to doing the Jansen X, and now we're doing some different sort of dehumidification rooms, really to sort of look at different ways of handling the coffee, and also making sure that we have, an idea of how different processes, different drying methods will affect the coffee. But I really want to emphasize that drying is incredibly important because it is still a part of the fermentation process. So until you fully dry, you're still changing the flavor of the coffee. So for me, it's all of the above, and that's why I compete in coffee, is because I wanted to learn how to actually brew the coffee. Because as a coffee producer, I'm always, the biggest thing is finding those people that really are passionate about coffee and really study it in a way that they do great things. So there are a lot of wonderful companies around the world here in Dubai, that really pay attention to what they're doing to create a great product. Because we could hand our coffee to someone and then they don't roast it right, or they don't have an opportunity to really have a market for it, so it sort of dwindles. So it's really creating that collaboration that allows for value to happen the whole way through. And as I like to say to a lot of people, the most important person kind of in the coffee world for me is actually the person that's the coffee lover. Because without the coffee lover, we aren't able to give that energy back to the whole way through in the coffee chain, back to the farmers, back to the harvesters. And as coffee is disappearing, it's really important to increase the value of coffee for everyone.
Yeah, and you're talking about, when you're talking about processing methods, you're talking about sort of this added value mechanism in your operation. Someone on stage yesterday said something akin to, okay, after you harvest that beautiful red cherry, everything after that is just messing it up. I feel like your approach is slightly different as you're trying to enhance certain flavors, but can you talk a little bit about if that's true, or if there's more nuance to it?
For me, that's definitely old school talk.
Yeah.
And I mean, imagine something that's saying, oh, I could only harm something. How is that energy compared to, oh, I can actually see the greatness in this and bring it out?
Yeah.
It's a very different intentionality, a very different energy. I'm in coffee to ideally create great energy, make connections, and raise awareness. So I like to teach people and invite them to see how every little thing matters. I mean, I have a lot of sort of brewing party tricks. So if I get a chance to brew coffee for you, I'll show you some of those tricks, but it'll just show you the nuances that every little thing matters. So I actually was, as far as I know, the first person back in 2017 who was changing the lip of cups to change the flavor, because you really can change the flavor in that way, in the perception of flavor. But I made a mistake because I gave the cups to someone who was competing, and I didn't think that they were going to use them. But when they used them here in Dubai and it was on film, it was really impossible for me to patent that as a function. So I didn't. And now it's really exciting to see all the different people that are doing these different cups. And a lot of people that came to visit us in Panama were like, oh yeah, that's what you should have done. And for me, we had to focus on other things. And I have other projects that I'm working on that I feel are coming to fruition and at just the right time.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit more about, so these two lots you had on auction yesterday, one was Jansen X, right?
They were both actually Jansen X. So Jansen
one was
X,
Wave as well,
right?
One
was a project that we were doing with Guryong from Singapore, from Wave Technology. So Wave Technology is really hard to explain, and it's really kind of amorphous. We get a lot of people who I would say claim to be scientists that would say, oh, that is complete fill in the blank. And from my perspective, if anybody's sort of read Thomas Kuhn and the Revolution of Science, they'll start to see that there are paradigms that get created, and then people are like the gatekeepers of what's science and what isn't science. Like classical science and then going to quantum science, things started to change in a way and they could experience it. I think having a closed mind as a scientist is a very dangerous thing. And the biggest thing that we all know is that they say, oh, wave technology is baloney, this low electromagnetic
energy doesn't really change anything. Well, the thing is that we really still don't even know how to explain how we taste. And people are realizing the vibrations are actually more important than structure of the molecules. So what I can tell you is that in our tastings, and very clearly for all coffee professionals that I know, is that we see a marked difference when we use wave technology and you don't. So are we, somehow confusing ourselves as to what we're doing? Well, the end result of what we want is what you actually taste. It's not what someone tells us is science. And that's sort of exterior sort of infringing on our own actual being. I mean, I'd rather be the landscape than pretend I'm the map of the landscape. That's a misplaced concreteness if anybody knows Alfred North Whitehead.
And so with wave technology, this is being applied at every single level of the coffee supply chain, correct? I've seen it, I saw it at Barista Championship in Milan being used on espresso. I've heard it on, I guess, cherry and fermentation tanks as well. I've heard it in green. Where were you guys applying it? Where have you found it to be effective?
So it can be applied in just many different ways, but really, we're still experimenting and figuring out what we're doing. So when Gary came last year in January to our farm in Volcan, Panama, we did about 36 different tests, always with a blind test in which we weren't using any wave technology to try and figure out what the effects are. And we're still in the process. It's very, very early on in the tests, as you might want to look at it. But we are applying it to cherries, to depulped, to demucilaged, and then doing different things. And this year we're doing other stuff that we'll see how it goes, because in any sort of experimentation, there's a learning curve, and mistakes are opportunities as opposed to dead ends.
Yeah, we tried your coffee in Milan as well together, and it really shocked me that it was, I think it was past crop coffee that you kept in a cool environment, but you had waved it and sort of brought it back to life. Not that it was completely dead, but brought it back to life in a way that was incredible. Are you also experimenting with that sort of idea?
We're more than experimenting. We're actually using it as a part of our process. So we have coffee here that's exactly that. In fact, the coffee you're talking about, I have here, and if Uber hadn't been stopped from dropping me off at the right place here at the World Dubai, because we don't really know where to go, and it took me so long to get here, I would have had that coffee roasted right now.
Yeah, getting around Dubai at times can be difficult. It's not the most walkable city either. So, and the traffic is nuts getting in here. So, appreciate you surviving that commute in. Go ahead.
I just wish that I was able to bring my bike, because then I could have just ridden my bike.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be a lot easier.
Exactly. All of us are in the same situation. I would enjoy that too. The weather's nice for it. So when you're doing all these experiments, they come out in this kind of sensorial experiment for you. I'm guessing you're tasting these coffees. You're trying to evaluate them, see how they roast. It's like modifying all these characteristics to dial in. Are you ever at a point where you say, okay, I can definitively say this about this processing method or this experiment that I've run, and I'm open to share that information with other producers and other folks, and now my job shifts from experimentation, scientists trying to dial these things in, to evangelists for this? Does that ever happen to you? Do you cross that chasm?
When I hear evangelist, it is sort of like back to the Apple Mac days that I hear that. I try to evangelize learning and connecting to whatever works for you. What might work for you doesn't necessarily mean that it works for me, but that's the beauty of it, is that the scientific method is one in which we're hypothesizing, testing, finding consequences, and seeing if other people are finding the same situation. So we do that all the time. I mean, yesterday I was with some of the Hawaiian farmers who are in your discovery auction. Go to M-Cultivo and go check it out. And they're, it's just amazing to me that they are willing to take the chance on being coffee farmers, because being a coffee farmer right now is very exciting, but it's also very dangerous. I mean, we are having climate change at such a rate that you don't know what's going on. And the weakest link in all of coffee by far is at the farm, in terms of the susceptibility to weather changes and what that situation happens. When that person said, oh, we can only make the coffee worse, we really just have to make sure that we can somehow progress in a way that the coffee can keep its greatness, or become even greater at times, because sometimes how you treat the coffee can change. And having the right person that can actually have the right palate. So you travel to different places that have different palates, and what fits their needs and what processes you would use for them. So, do I become definitive? I don't think I ever become definitive, but I do become very clear as to what I intend to do and see if other people find the same thing to happen. So I think that it's an exciting time to be in coffee for me. I am very fortunate that the way that I wanted to do coffee in the early 90s, nobody was thinking that way. I mean, I remember speaking with David Roche, who was doing all this experimental stuff and was a part of the CQI. And I was like, okay, why can't we do like a mail serve or an email list between coffee producers so that we can learn as much as we can by what we're doing? And it wasn't that way, because everything was very insular. Everything was kept to very close to the chest. Nobody wanted to share it because it was a very tribal idea of what's going on. We're in the midst of what I think is a transition between looking at tribal sort of ideas of scarcity to hopefully looking at something of more understanding and creating greater energy through abundance. Having said that, I'll say that there are things that we do share and don't share because we're not sure. But also there's just a tradition of saying, okay, like Jansen X for the most part has been proprietary. What we decided was, okay, we're going to be doing this for a while and figuring out how it works so that then we can share it at different points in time. And Jansen X was a collaboration between myself and Ben Morrow that started in 2018 here in Dubai. Ben was the guy that named it Jansen X. That's why it was there, and that was back then. It has nothing to do with the trend to go X here in time.
In the spirit of continuous learning that you're on and being at the show, I would be curious if you've been able to. What are you picking up at this show specifically and learning this show specifically that kind of influences your opinion on this transition from, I love what you said, tribal scarcity to something that's more refined and I don't know if the word's elegant. I'm kind of at a loss for words of what that tradition is. We use the word luxury sometimes.
I think elevated would be maybe one way of putting it, I mean, I think luxury is the market that we are in, and we are geisha, we are Asok Bakamara, and then when we get a chance to do it, we're Katwai and Katura. We grow Katwai and Katura on the farm, but it is roasted and sold locally in Panama. I would love to be able to do more processing on that because you do value add there. I mean, you can do different methods. Our Katwai sold for $50 a pound when it was Jansen X, and it was a very different process. And so the $50 a pound, so that's like $120, and that was, without an auction. Auctions are fantastic. Go to Discovery Coffee. And they're awesome because they allow people to sort of connect with things that they might not have in terms of coffee. Here, meeting people that are just so excited to continue to do coffee, like the couple from Hawaii, giving them, the opportunity to say, okay, these are the easiest ways that you can actually improve your coffee from a processing perspective that doesn't cost a lot of money. And you can see whether it works for you or not, but it finally does come down to the cup. So how you set up the cup, how you roast the coffee. I mean, right now, here is Sam Cora and Jordan with Nucleus Tools, who are providing the Link coffee roaster that Sam is really enabling producers to really taste the coffee and control how they view their coffee. In the same way that Ikawa started to do and others started to do, but to have Sam's amazing sort of genius in how this is done, and what he does is just mind-boggling, because it really, as a producer, you would have people kind of grade your coffee in the old days when they'd be like, hey, you could only harm the coffee, it can't get any better. You would have buyers come in, they would probably put 3, 4, maybe 5 points down on your coffee so that they didn't pay you a good price. You didn't know, but everything was handled by roasters. What Panama has done is sort of turn the tables and say, actually, producers are really valuable. And that has a lot to do with, traditions in other locations. Japan has a high value and esteem and respect for natural producers, whether it be amazing grapes or melons, and that really translated to coffee. So I feel very fortunate to have been, been sort of on the ride of coffee, in which we've seen it elevate to this level. I mean, the idea of a $30,000 a kilo green coffee is unbelievable. And yet when you look at that and you look at, okay, other beverages that are incredibly expensive, and you look at the actual experience of what coffee is, from my perspective, more valuable. It's more fleeting. And it's more fleeting, and it's more dependent on every single element. It's more complex. I mean, complex like naturally. I mean, there's so many more elements to the smells and volatiles of coffee as opposed to wine. I mean, like on a Magner, or just a great it's almost exponential. It actually is. So getting to the point of we're just such a small industry and we're discovering so many things. That's kind of what energizes, I think, a lot of us. So when we're doing this, is that we are doing things that have not been done before. So the idea to go back to it on that wave thing is when you are waving coffee on a platform, green coffee, you can start to clean it up and keep coffee alive longer. So it's like, it's like maybe, a cheap way of putting it would be heating up your food and making it taste better, but cleaning up your coffee so that when you're roasting it, it changes. So the waved coffee that was in the auction was something that we'd done an AO wave, which was essentially we had created very antioxidized water and then used that to wash the cherries, and we did a 24-hour dry ferment. We did some drying, and it was finished off in the Jansen X boxes, so it was a Jansen X as well.
Well, both lots were amazing. The wave lot was very interesting. I think I want to be respectful of your time, Kai, so I think we will wrap there. But, excuse the last really bad pun, but I feel like as an industry we have caught some sort of wave into this elevated movement that is now, specialty coffee in a very different way. So I thank you for being a part of that. I thank you for sharing your wisdom. As Kai has mentioned a couple times, we do have a couple Hawaiian coffees on the table for producer discovery, still being cupped. You guys are welcome over to our booth to cup those coffees, and please register and bid, and we will see you back on stage.
It's been a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to go and discover those coffees. So, and I don't know if you have cupping notes on stuff like that on those coffees that's up there for people to sort of take a look at?
We do, yes. We have full descriptions and cupping notes. As I said, 2 Hawaiians, one from the couple you're talking about, Hawaiian Goat is one. And so that is the Kona region. You
Greatest
can look out
of
for
all
that.
time? All right. Sweet.
And look for Kai around the show. He's brewing coffee. He's always got amazing stuff.
Thank
you
you
guys so much.
Have
We'll
a
see
good
you
one.
soon at the stage.
Cheers.
Yep.
Bye.
Thanks, Kai. Appreciate you.
Thank you.